Welcome to the Contractor Safety Orientation. We are glad that you have made the decision to work with us on this project. RISE is dedicated to the elimination of construction accidents, injuries, illnesses, and fatalities, with the ultimate objective of returning construction workers home to their families, friends, and communities free from harm. At RISE, safety and health is a value which will never be compromised. A safe and healthy work environment is a basic right for all. Our first and foremost responsibility is to protect our employees and the environment. In addition, we believe we owe it to anyone and everyone working with, in, and around our projects, and to maintain and continuously improve our safety performance. We are committed to protecting and preserving the safety and health of our employees, customers, other contractors, the public, and the environment. Fostering a culture of caring, trust, and openness by empowering our employees to own safety at a personal level, and by openly supporting and enforcing this policy through the use of stop work obligation and intervention. Providing safe products and services to our customers. To carry out this policy, RISE will provide appropriate financial, human, and organizational resources to plan, implement, check, review, and continuously improve our health and safety management system. Actively promote a safe and healthy workplace with management leadership and employee involvement. Hold each supervisor accountable for ensuring employees, equipment, and facilities within their area of responsibility are managed in a safe and healthy manner while protecting against negative environmental impacts. Hold all employees responsible for maintaining safe working conditions by identifying and reporting workplace hazards while adhering to and complying with environmental, health, and safety rules and regulations. Our expectations. Subcontractors must provide competent, knowledgeable supervision of their crews at all times. Maintain frequent communication with the site team. Encourage questions and open communication. Actively participate in site safety and related events. Promptly report any hazards overlooked by our team. Report all accidents without delay. Provide skilled and experienced crews. Attendance at weekly subcontractor meetings is mandatory. Inform us of any assistance required to facilitate your work with us. Foster a culture of encouragement within your teams. Maintain clear communication with your crews. Proficiency in utilizing Procore is essential. Follow all safety rules, policy, and procedures. Perform all work in a safe manner. Report all unsafe acts, safety issues. If asked to perform work in an unsafe manner, report directly to the site team. Wear appropriate PPE at all times. Subcontractors are responsible for training all of their sub-tiered crews and must have documentation available upon request. Now we will go over a few basic site safety rules we expect everyone to follow. All personnel must attend a RISE-led safety orientation prior to beginning work. No drugs and/or alcohol is allowed. Any visibly impaired worker will be sent home. The possession of firearms and/or other weapons is not permitted. Loud music and portable audio devices are not allowed. Loud music can become a distraction. No talking and/or texting on your phone while operating any equipment. Before operating tools and/or equipment, make sure you inspect that equipment and that you have been properly trained to use that equipment. Fall protection is required for anyone working at heights greater than 6 foot. Do not remove guards or disable safety devices on any equipment you are using. There is no food allowed in the building. Period. Smoking is allowed in designated areas only and never inside the buildings. As previously stated, RISE has a multi-level disciplinary policy and will be closely followed. Some of the project-specific guidelines for grounds for removal from the job site include consistently failing to follow policies and procedures, your site-specific safety plan, failure to wear your PPE, fighting, alcohol and drug use and/or possession of any weapons. Now we will cover the site logistics plan. Please keep in mind that this plan changes frequently as the site and duties change. The site logistics map should be located inside and outside of the job site office and holds key site information, such as the following: location of entrances and exits, restrooms, parking areas, the location of the nearest medical facility should an emergency occur on site, fire alarm locations, the general flow of traffic within the job site, and will also have the RISE site team's contact information. As a reminder, please do not block entryways and/or exits. Have deliveries set up and coordinated with the site team prior to deliveries arriving, and make sure that you have the manpower to offload any materials that are being delivered, as well as any equipment needed to unload. The site first aid kit and AED, along with the eyewash station, are all kept in the site office, along with the SDS manuals. Use this chart to determine the course of action for emergencies that may occur while on site. Remember, stay calm during the emergencies. Always check in with your supervisor, and supervisors need to make sure to stay in communication with the site team for further instructions. To clarify as to what should be considered as an emergency, use the following definitions when choosing the course of action you will take. A serious injury is defined as an injury in which is an acute threat to life. The worker is unconscious. The worker is bleeding heavily and is unable to move, walk, or be transported with minimal assistance. Or, the worker is unresponsive. A non-serious injury is defined as an injury in which bleeding can be controlled. The injured is able to walk and move freely and is able to breathe normally, and does not meet the serious injury definitions as previously stated. Next, we will discuss pre-task planning. Pre-task planning is required and due daily by 10 a.m., along with daily man counts. Forms for pre-task planning, or JSAs, can be found in Procore under the Forms section of the job site location. These need to filled out correctly and completely, with your crews signing off on them as well. See the form here on this page. If you have another form that is similar, you may submit it instead of the one here. It is preferred that all communications, forms, etc. are done through Procore. Housekeeping. Housekeeping is the responsibility of all workers. It shall not be left undone or left to someone else's discretion. If you create trash, you are responsible for its prompt removal. There are no maid services offered at any job site. Materials shall be maintained in neat stockpiles for ease of access. Clean up loose materials and waste as soon as possible. Do not leave any water bottles, drink containers, food containers, etc. in the building. Good housekeeping is an important element of incident prevention and must be a primary concern to all personnel. It will be planned at the beginning of the job and will be carefully supervised and followed through. It will not only contribute greatly to the prevention of accidents and injuries, but will also better utilize the space in which you work. Remember, everyone that comes to our job site is responsible for disposing of their own trash and materials by the end of the day, every day. No exceptions. Material handling. When handling any materials on site, be sure to adhere to the following guidelines. Always use proper lifting techniques. Size up the load. Get as close to the load as possible. Make sure footing is secure. Don't twist. Lift smoothly. Ask for help for larger loads. Or use machinery and/or equipment. Just make sure you are qualified, trained, and have permission to use any equipment required. See the attached detailed chart on techniques. The personal protective equipment, or PPE, that is required on every RISE job site includes a hard hat, high-vis vest, t-shirt or jacket, work boots rated for safety, and safety glasses. Certain tasks you may perform will also require specialized PPE. Such as working at heights, you will be required to wear a harness with a lanyard. If you are cutting materials, you may also be required to wear gloves and/or safety goggles, etc. If you are not sure what PPE you may need, please contact any RISE team member or your supervisor. Please remember that the following are not allowed: cut-off shirts, shorts, tank tops, baggy clothing, flip-flops, sandals, loafers, and tennis shoes. Next up, hazard communication. If you are working with any chemicals on site, You will need to be aware of what those chemicals are and how to handle them correctly. Ensure that you have the proper PPE on while exposed to those chemicals. Review the SDS information. Some exposure will get worse if treated with water after an exposure, so make sure you know the chemicals you're working with and how to treat an excess exposure from them. See the charts attached here, for example, of the labeling and the information regarding the GHS, Global Harmonized System, for chemicals. Note the symbols representing hazardous chemicals and what reactions they have, for example, if they are explosive, corrosive, or flammable, and treat these with caution. Now we will discuss specific hazards that you may encounter on site. These are what OSHA calls the Focus 4, formerly the Fatal 4 of construction. These are caught between, electrocution struck by, and falls. We will address each of these now. The number one cause of serious injuries in the workplace is falls. Falls can happen at any height. Use of personal fall protection is required anytime you are working at 6 feet or more from the lower level. This includes roof edges, roof work, and leading edge work. You are also required to wear fall protection in any lift and/or basket that raises up greater than 6 feet. Ladder safety. When using ladders, ensure to follow the simple rules. Inspect the ladder for any damages. Metal ladders conduct electricity and are not allowed. Make sure that job site-made ladders are compliant. Ladders can come in handy when you need them. However, don't ever use a ladder in a way that could cause you to have an accident. Here are a few ways of how not to use a ladder. Remember, job site ladders must be constructed to be compliant. See the attached chart for specifics. Also, make sure that they are secured at the top and the bottom to prevent the ladder from sliding away. Next, we will discuss scaffolds. Scaffolds are commonly used in areas of great heights. Because fall hazards are frequent from scaffolding, fall protection is required. Only trained, competent persons are allowed to assemble and disassemble scaffolding. Fall protection is required for assembling and disassembling of scaffolds. Scaffolds are to be inspected daily by a competent person. No job site-made scaffolding is ever allowed without prior authorization. See the diagram for proper scaffolding requirements here. No scaffolding should be erected without first discussing with the site team. Caught between. This is an accident in which the whole body or part of the body is pinched or crushed between objects, such as when moving pipe and casing, between mobile equipment, improper use of hand tools, and/or wearing loose clothing or long hair that can get tangled up in machinery. Now we will discuss electrical hazards. As previously discussed, electrical hazards can cause serious burns. Some of these electrical hazards have the potential to cause serious injuries and death. All extension cords must be visually inspected to ensure there are no nicks or frays in them. Make sure to check the area around the housing of the cord, that it is not separated. All cords should be the proper gauge. The use of any cord less than 12 gauge should not be used. All cords should also have a ground pin. These pins should not be replaced with screws, nails, or any other material. When using extension cords, be sure to either hang them up out of your work area or sweep them to the side in a walkway. Any damaged cords will be disposed of at the subcontractor's expense. Damaged cords can not only cause injury, but can also lead to fires. Being shocked from a damaged cord is no fun. The use of GFCIs is highly recommended when available. Weekly outlet and receptacle checks are also recommended. All live wires and parts should be covered with the appropriate plates. Covering these outlets and receptacles with tape is not recommended and is not acceptable. Do not bypass any safety measures being done in panel boxes. These are locked for your safety. If you are having trouble with the GFCI kicking on, speak with the site superintendent so that adjustments can be made. Only licensed electricians are allowed to work on electrical elements. No live hot work is permitted at any time, without prior approval from the RISE superintendent. Fire prevention and fire extinguisher use. Fire extinguishers are our first line of defense against fires. Please do not needlessly discharge these. Anyone caught doing so will be asked to leave the job site. Make sure that you are inspecting fire extinguishers monthly. Do not attempt to fight a large fire. Get out of the building as soon as possible. If it is a small fire, call 911 first, then attempt to extinguish. To use the fire extinguisher, you will first pull the pin. Aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. Squeeze the handle, and using a sweeping motion, point the nozzle at the base of the fire to extinguish. Using the acronym PASS can help you remember what to do with the fire extinguisher. P. Pull the pin. A. Aim the nozzle. S. Squeeze the handle S, using sweeping motion while pointing the nozzle to the base of the fire. Working in unfavorable conditions at times is a necessity. However, you need to make sure that you come prepared, especially when working in the heat. Heat-related stress, illness, and injuries can become serious issues if you do not stay properly hydrated. Please see the recommended guidelines from OSHA here as a reference. Recommendations include: hydrate before, during, and after work. Avoid energy drinks and alcohol. Also, be mindful of sun exposure and cover up, wearing tightly woven clothing that will block our light. Use sunscreen. Limit your exposure to the sun if possible. Notice: if you experience any heat-related symptoms such as dizziness, chills, and/or sweating has stopped, stop working immediately and contact your supervisor to make an assessment. If you experience chest pain or shortness of breath, call 911 immediately. Trenching and excavation is another huge hazard. Trenching and excavation can be deadly if proper steps aren't taken. When these areas are not controlled, injuries are almost always fatal. Make sure the competent person is evaluating the soil daily. Make sure that any areas that are not completed by the end of the day, that they are barricaded. Spoil piles should be set back at a minimum of 2 feet from the edge of a trench. Trench boxes are required for excavations greater than 6 feet deep. An engineered system shall be in place on an excavation greater than 25 feet deep. Utilities should be located prior to any excavation being done on any job site. As-builds should be updated daily. And never ever enter an unprotected trench. Heavy equipment should only be operated by those that are specifically trained on the equipment. All heavy equipment must be in safe operating order. Use caution when working or walking around near heavy equipment. You must make eye contact with the operator prior to going in its path. Backup alarms on equipment are required, as well as spotters on tight job sites. Equipment should be inspected every day prior to use. Make sure to wear your seatbelt while operating. No cell phone use while operating any kind of heavy equipment. Hand and power tools. Hand tools can be dangerous if not used properly. Make sure that you wear the correct protective eyewear if you will be using any power tools. Use these only for the purpose they were intended for. Do not leave tools laying in overhead work areas where they could potentially fall on top of someone. Make sure that the safety guards are not removed from tools and that they are working correctly daily. Do not lift or lower tools by their cord. Keep hands away from moving parts. Powder-actuated tools, if used, require additional authorized training. Be sure to discard all powder-actuated strips that have been used properly. If not discarded properly, these can be the source of fires in a wood-built structure. Another hazard you may encounter on any construction site is exposure to respirable crystalline silica. Crystalline silica is a common mineral that is found in construction materials such as sand, stone, concrete, brick, and mortar. When workers cut, grind, drill, or crush materials that contain silica, very small dust particles are created, as seen in these photos. These tiny particles can travel deep into your lungs and cause silicosis, an incurable and sometimes deadly lung disease. Silica also causes lung cancer and other potentially debilitating respiratory diseases such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and kidney disease. In most cases, these diseases occur after years of exposure to respirable crystalline silica. Construction workers can be exposed to respirable crystalline silica by performing common tasks such as using masonry saws, grinders, drills, jackhammers, and handheld-powered chipping tools. Operating vehicle-mounted drilling rigs, milling, and/or operating crushing machines, using heavy equipment for demolition or other tasks such as abrasive blasting and tunneling operations. To limit exposure, you can follow the guidelines set forth in Table 1. Listed here, cranes. When a crane is scheduled to be on site, a lift plan should be submitted prior to the arrival so that it can be reviewed and changed if necessary. A pre-crane meeting will also need to be done, and those forms can be found in Procore under the Forms section of the project, no matter what size crane you expect to use. Proper preparation must be done prior to the crane's arrival on the job site. Hot work. OSHA defines hot work as any operation that produces sparks or flames, such as welding, cutting, or burning. Hot work permits are required for all RISE job sites. These permits are located in the job site folder in Procore under the Forms section. Before beginning any hot work, you must first notify the RISE site superintendent. Hot work should only be performed after the necessary precautions have been taken. When possible, any cutting of metal materials should be done outside of the building. If this is not possible, make sure that you have cleared the area of any fire hazards and use fire blankets to shield any areas that will directly be affected by sparks and/or flames. A fire watch must be done for at least 30 minutes after hot work has been completed, except when working on the roof, in this case, a fire watch will need to be done for at least 1.5 hours after work is completed. Remember this as you are planning the work. Make sure that you report any accidents and/or near misses to the RISE site team. No matter how small or large an accident, they all need to be reported. This isn't to point the finger of blame at anyone. It is simply to improve our safety program. Important highlights of this orientation that you need to remember are the following. Fall protection when you are working at heights greater than 6 foot are mandatory. We have a zero-tolerance policy on fall protection. If you decide not to use it, you will be sent home and may require proof of further training before you are allowed back on site. Check your equipment every day without fail. No excuses. And it only takes a few minutes. This could quite literally save your life. Do it. Parking in designated areas only. Unauthorized parked vehicles may be towed at owner's expense. Do not block entry and exits. In the building or to the job site, do not remove barricades without permission, and if you do remove them, you are responsible for their replacement. Everyone has the authority to stop work if they observe unsafe work being performed. We are all adults. We expect you to behave yourself as such. If you have a question, ask. There is no harm in asking questions. RISE does not supply PPE for subcontractors. Subcontractors will be responsible for providing the appropriate PPE for their workers. Important notice: work falling behind schedule due to non-compliance with any of our subcontractors will be assessed and charged for accordingly. Any additional training for non-compliant workers that is required prior to a worker returning to the job site is the sole responsibility of that worker's employer. While it is the duty of that worker's employer to provide the additional training if needed, RISE will assist in coordinating the training if possible. However, the cost for additional training will be on the employer. Lost time due to lack of adequate skilled labor and supervision on site will be the sole responsibility of that contractor and will be adjusted in the schedule and charged back to that contractor. All construction sites are dangerous and have many hazards that we will no doubt encounter. We must be diligent in doing our part to ensure not only our own safety, but the safety of others. By following the rules and receiving the training we need, hopefully each of us will be able to keep our job sites a little safer every day. Please make sure that the form at the end of this presentation is completed before exiting. For any questions or technical difficulties, please contact your site superintendent. Thank you again for choosing to work with us on this project. We appreciate all that you're doing to keep RISE safe.